Imagine cruising down a sunny beach road when suddenly you hear that familiar jingle echoing across the waves. You look out at the ocean and there it is, an ice cream truck bobbing through the surf, its colorful panels gleaming in the sunlight as it serves frozen treats to swimmers and boaters. This isn't some fever dream or elaborate prank. This actually happened, and the story behind the world's first and only amphibious ice cream truck is far stranger and more fascinating than you could ever imagine. Welcome back to 2 a.m. Brain Cell, where we dive deep into most extraordinary stories hiding beneath the surface of history. I'm your host, and today we're exploring a tale that perfectly embodies human ingenuity, maritime adventure, and our eternal quest for ice cream in the most unlikely places. This is a story of a vehicle that defied convention, challenged physics, and brought joy to people in ways nobody thought possible. Our story begins in the summer of 1966 in the coastal town of Santa Barbara, California. The Vietnam War was raging, the Beatles were at their peak, and America was experiencing a golden age of innovation and optimism. It was during this time that a man named Captain Theodore Williamson, a retired Navy engineer with an unusual obsession, decided to solve what he considered one of life's greatest injustices. Williamson had spent 20 years in the Navy, working on everything from submarine designs to amphibious landing craft. After retiring to Santa Barbara, he noticed something that bothered him tremendously. Every day, he watched families enjoying the beautiful beaches, but when the ice cream truck rolled by with its cheerful melody, only the people on dry land could enjoy its frozen treasures. The swimmers, surfers, and boaters were left out in the cold, so to speak. Now, most people would accept this as a simple fact of life. Ice cream trucks belong on land, boats belong in water, and never the two shall meet. But Captain Williamson wasn't most people. He was an engineer who had helped design vehicles that could transition seamlessly between land and sea during wartime. If the military could do it for combat, why couldn't someone do it for ice cream? The idea consumed him. Williamson began sketching designs in his garage workshop, poring over technical manuals from his Navy days, and calculating buoyancy ratios late into the night. His wife thought he'd lost his mind. His neighbors assumed it was some kind of midlife crisis. But Williamson was deadly serious about bringing frozen happiness to every corner of Santa Barbara's coastline. The technical challenges were enormous. A traditional ice cream truck weighs several tons when fully loaded with freezer equipment, generators, and inventory. Making such a heavy vehicle seaworthy required completely reimagining its construction from the ground up. Williamson needed to create something that could navigate city streets efficiently, while also being stable enough to handle ocean swells without capsizing or flooding its delicate refrigeration systems. He started with a military surplus DKW, one of those famous duck boats used during World War II for amphibious landings. These vehicles were already proven to work on both land and water, but they were designed for transporting troops and supplies, not selling ice cream to families. Williamson spent 8 months completely gutting and redesigning the interior, installing custom refrigeration units that could operate independently of the main engine, waterproof electrical systems, and a specialized hull modification that would keep everything stable while serving customers from the water. The refrigeration system alone was an engineering marvel. Traditional ice cream trucks rely on standard electrical connections and cooling systems that would be catastrophic if exposed to salt water. Williamson developed a completely sealed, pressure-resistant cooling system with backup generators and emergency flotation devices built into the freezer compartments. If anything went wrong, the ice cream would literally float. But the real genius was in the serving mechanism. On land, customers simply walk up to the truck's service window. On water, that becomes significantly more complicated. Williamson designed a retractable service platform that could extend out over the water, along with a specialized crane system for delivering ice cream to boats and swimmers who couldn't get close enough to the truck itself. The whole setup could be deployed in under 2 minutes and retracted just as quickly when it was time to move. The visual design was spectacular. Williamson painted the entire vehicle in bright aquatic blues and whites, with sea creatures and ice cream cones dancing across the hull. He installed maritime navigation lights alongside the traditional ice cream truck fixtures, and even added a custom horn that could play ice cream truck jingles while meeting Coast Guard sound requirements for marine vessels. From a distance, it looked like something Dr. Seuss might have dreamed up after spending too much time at the beach. The first test run happened on a calm Tuesday morning in August 1966. Williamson had invited local reporters and Coast Guard officials to witness what he was calling the maiden voyage of the frozen wave, as he christened his creation. The truck rolled down to the water's edge, and with a crowd of spectators watching, it slowly entered the surf. What happened next was pure magic. The frozen wave transitioned seamlessly from land to water, its specially designed hull cutting to the gentle waves as the refrigeration systems hummed contentedly. Williamson steered the floating ice cream truck out into Santa Barbara Harbor, where he'd arranged for several boats to meet him for the first official amphibious ice cream transaction in world history. The sight was surreal. Children pressed against the railings of pleasure boats, pointing excitedly as the ice cream truck approached through the waves. Adults stood slack-jawed as Williamson deployed his service platform and began handing out frozen treats to customers bobbing in the Pacific Ocean. The local newspaper photographer captured the moment for posterity, and by the next day, images of the world's first amphibious ice cream truck were spreading across the country. But this wasn't just a publicity stunt. Williamson had actually created a viable business. The frozen wave operated throughout that summer, serving beachgoers on land during the mornings and then transitioning to water service during the afternoon when harbor traffic was heaviest. Yacht owners would radio ahead to arrange meetups in the bay. Surfers would paddle out to intercept the truck during its regular routes. Even the local Coast Guard station became regular customers, with officers flagging down the frozen wave for ice cream deliveries during their patrols. The economics were surprisingly sound. While operating costs were higher than traditional ice cream truck due to fuel consumption and specialized maintenance requirements, the novelty factor allowed Williamson to charge premium prices. A simple ice cream sandwich that might cost 30 cents from a land-based truck could fetch $1.50 from the frozen wave, and customers were happy to pay for the unique experience. Word of the amphibious ice cream truck spread far beyond Santa Barbara. Television crews arrived from Los Angeles and San Francisco to document the phenomenon. National magazines ran feature stories about the eccentric captain and his floating frozen treats. Williamson received calls from entrepreneurs in coastal cities around the world, wanting to license his design or hire him to build similar vehicles for their markets. But success brought unexpected challenges. The novelty that made the frozen wave profitable also made it a regulatory nightmare. Local authorities weren't sure how to classify the vehicle. Was it a truck that happened to float, or a boat that happened to sell ice cream? Different rules applied depending on which category it fell into, and Williamson found himself navigating a maze of permits, inspections, and licensing requirements that no one had ever dealt with before. The Coast Guard required marine safety certifications. The Health Department wanted food service inspections. The city needed business licenses for both land and water operations. The harbor master demanded proof of insurance and environmental impact assessments. Every agency had different requirements, and many of them contradicted each other. What had started as a simple dream of bringing ice cream to swimmers had become a bureaucratic labyrinth. Environmental concerns also emerged as the frozen wave gained popularity. Marine biologists worried about the impact of increased boat traffic in sensitive coastal areas. Some environmentalists argued that combining food service with marine operations posed unnecessary pollution risks. While Williamson had designed the truck with environmental safety in mind, including specialized waste containment systems and biodegradable materials wherever possible, the concerns persisted. The most serious challenge came during the summer of 1967, when a competitor filed a lawsuit claiming that the frozen wave created unfair business advantages. Traditional ice cream truck operators argued that they couldn't compete with a vehicle that had access to both land and water customers. The case dragged through local courts for months, creating legal uncertainty that made it difficult for Williamson to secure financing for expansion or improvements. Meanwhile, maintenance costs were proving higher than anticipated. The combination of saltwater exposure and constant transitions between land and water created unique wear patterns that required specialized parts and services. The refrigeration system, while innovative, needed frequent recalibration to handle the dramatic temperature and humidity changes between different operating environments. Every month brought new technical challenges that pushed the limits of 1960s engineering capabilities. Despite these obstacles, the Frozen Wave continued operating through 1967 and into 1968, building a devoted following of customers who planned their beach days around its schedule. Children would wait at specific harbor locations, knowing that the musical truck would emerge in the waves at predictable times. Boaters would monitor marine radio frequencies for updates on the Frozen Wave's location and daily specials. The truck became more than just a business. It was a beloved local institution that embodied the creative spirit of the era. People traveled from hundreds of miles away just to experience buying ice cream from a floating truck. Wedding parties would hire the Frozen Wave for unique photo opportunities. Local artists created paintings and sculptures inspired by its whimsical presence in the harbor. But by late 1968, the challenges were mounting faster than Williamson could solve them. Rising insurance costs, increasing regulatory pressure, and mounting legal fees were eating into profits. The original DUKW hull was showing signs of fatigue from its unique dual-purpose service, requiring expensive repairs that specialized marine mechanics charged premium rates to perform. The final blow came in early 1969, when new federal regulations governing amphibious commercial vehicles essentially made the Frozen Wave business model impossible. The regulations had been written with military and emergency service vehicles in mind, but they applied to any vehicle operating in both domains. Compliance would have required modifications so extensive that they would essentially mean building an entirely new truck. Faced with these insurmountable obstacles, Williamson made the difficult decision to retire the Frozen Wave at the end of the 1969 summer season. The final voyage was an emotional affair, with hundreds of customers gathering to purchase one last ice cream from a floating truck that had brought so much joy to their lives. Local television crews documented the bittersweet moment as the Frozen Wave made its final transition from water to land, never to return to the sea. Today, the Frozen Wave sits in a private collection in Southern California, a testament to one man's determination to solve a problem that most people didn't even know existed. While it never spawned the amphibious ice cream truck revolution that some predicted, it remains a perfect example of American ingenuity and the power of thinking beyond conventional limitations. The story of the Frozen Wave reminds us that innovation often comes from the most unexpected places and the most whimsical inspirations. Captain Williamson saw families separated by the arbitrary boundary between land and sea, and he refused to accept that separation as permanent. His solution may have been impractical and ultimately unsustainable, but it was also magnificent in its audacity and pure in its intention to bring happiness to people in new ways. In our modern world of drone deliveries and digital everything, there's something refreshing about a story where someone built something impossible just to make children smile. The Frozen Wave may have been the world's first and only amphibious ice cream truck, but its legacy lives on as proof that with enough creativity and determination, even the most ridiculous dreams can become reality, at least for a while.